Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing something a little different than normal. I'm going to be talking about myself and my experience in education. Now, you might be wondering what my experience in education means and why I'm not saying my experience in school and why on earth I'm making a video about that in the first place. And that is because I've had an unconventional education, to say the least. I've not been homeschooled, it's nothing like that. It's just that I have not really been in school a lot. When I have been in school, it hasn't gone well. And that's led to a lot of problems that I'm still dealing with today. So let's jump right in. We're going to start with year 5. For all you Americans out there, that is the 4th grade. When I was in year 5, I moved to England from Malaysia, where I had been living since I was 2. I didn't want to leave. So we moved to London, where I had lived before we moved to Malaysia, but for a very short time when I was very young. So I really didn't remember a thing. And we had to find a new school. In Malaysia, I had been in a co-educational private school because you could not be in state school in Malaysia unless you were a Malaysian citizen, which I was not. I am a British citizen and a Singaporean citizen. So I was at this school with boys and girls of all different cultures. And the school that my parents eventually chose for me and my younger sister was a private girls' school. This was a really different environment from the one I'd been in before. And to be honest, quite monocultural. I was one of the, if not the, only Southeast Asian in my class, perhaps the whole school. There were maybe 5 black girls in my entire year. It was really a culture shock. So that was jarring, to say the least. I got made fun of quite badly because I had an international school accent, so it was kind of an amalgamation of British, American, Australian and Canadian. So yeah, I sounded pretty weird. That is why I now have my Hermione Granger posh British accent. It's entirely fake.
It's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
Year 5 and 6 weren't terrible. I'll be honest, they were not the worst years of my life. They were hard. I was adjusting to a new country, a new school, new ways of doing things. I did all right. During year 6, however, things started to go downhill. I was feeling really sad all the time, to the point that my teachers and my mum noticed. I'd always used creative writing as a kind of outlet to express myself. I think a lot of people do that. And now I guess I do that with songwriting. But I wrote a story inspired by My Sister Lives on the Mantelpiece by Annabel Pitcher. The book is about a boy whose sister is killed in a terrorist attack, and I wrote a story about a girl whose best friend is killed in a terrorist attack, where she's present and she survives. I showed this to my teacher because I was very proud of it. I thought it was my magnum opus. I was going to publish it and be a best-selling author. And my teacher told my mother I needed to see a therapist. I was really mad at her for that. For a long time, I felt like she'd betrayed my trust, like she'd taken something really innocent and used it against me, because that's what I thought going to therapy was. I thought it was something that was being done to me, not for me. So in year 6, the 5th grade, at about the age of 10, I was sent to therapy for the first time. My first therapist was called Marie. I didn't get on with her. In the UK, we have this thing called CAMS, which is Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services. CAMS has a lot of flaws. It's chronically underfunded. Like, the vast majority of the practitioners in CAMS do their very best to help the children that they work with. And I'm sure Marie was the same. We just really didn't click. Marie figured out that I had depression and anxiety. That's quite a lot for a 10-year-old to be dealing with. So I had art therapy for about a year. I don't think it helped, to be honest. It was just not my cup of tea. Then something big happened. Well, the first of two big things. I left primary school and I went to secondary school. My school, the private all-girls school, had a secondary school, which I went to. It was scary. I think anyone that has started high school after elementary knows what it's like. It was a big change, a big shock, but and there's no buts about it actually, it was scary and different and I didn't like it. Our schedules were crammed, I had more homework than I'd ever had before. It just wasn't a good experience for me. I wasn't enjoying my year. And then about halfway through it got dramatically worse. My mother saw a documentary about a school for girls with autism, and she recognised me in all of these girls. And so she went to my therapist and she said to my therapist that she thought I had autism. And my therapist said that she would refer me to the neurodevelopmental branch of CAMS, which she did. In January of 6th grade, year 7, I was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. I've come a long way in accepting myself for who I am and having autism as a part of me that I can't change and that I can be proud of, but thinking about getting that diagnosis and all of the things that it meant for me and my life is really hard. At this point, my depression and anxiety was getting to a really, really bad point. I was self-harming on a regular basis. I was really reluctant to go to school. When I did go to school, I was skipping classes, hiding in the bathrooms, cutting myself. It was a really bad time. I didn't tell my mum or my therapist or anyone. I wasn't well liked in high school. I didn't have friends. And it's funny because this is still my first year. This all happened in my first year. A couple of months maybe after I got the ASD diagnosis. ASD is autism spectrum disorder. That's just what I'm going to be referring to from now on, instead of just saying autism spectrum disorder every single time, you know? So after I got this diagnosis, a girl, we won't mention her name, started a petition, which she handed around at lunchtime and got about 20 signatures on. It was a petition for me to kill myself because I didn't belong at the school with normal people. You can imagine how difficult that would be for a girl who already felt like an outsider, a girl who already wanted to kill herself. I went home early that day. There were no consequences for the girl that did it. She was later expelled for calling a black girl the N-word, but that's another story. That kind of brought an end to my year at that school. They had offered me no support for my depression, my anxiety, or my ASD. Absolutely nothing. And I was self-harming every day. My mother had found out, my therapist had found out. It was really, really awful. So my mother made what was probably the only rational decision for me to move schools. And so I did. I moved to another all-girls private school, this one more in central London. I do think that had I gone to this school at a different time in my life, it would have been a perfect fit for me. The staff, the teachers there were incredibly supportive of me. They really, really tried their best. But unfortunately, at the time I went to that school, I reached my breaking point. This was year 8, 7th grade. I was 12 years old, and I tried to kill myself. I attempted suicide by overdose on paracetamol. I won't go into the details, but you can guess. This was in late November. I was one semester into the year, and I dropped out. I was no longer in school. I couldn't carry on. I was put into something called the Supported Discharge Service, or the SDS, which is an alternative to inpatient care in a psychiatric hospital. Marie had stopped being my therapist during year 7, and I had a therapist called Rachel, who I got along with incredibly well. Rachel and my psychiatrist decided that inpatient care would be wrong for me because the influence of other extremely sick people on my mind could make things worse. The SDS was sometimes used for inpatients who were trying to become outpatients, who were trying to be discharged fully from the system, or in my case, people who couldn't be inpatient for whatever reason, but needed more full-time care. So I went into the SDS in the hospital every day for 9 months, the entirety of year 8. My depression and my anxiety were being treated, but they weren't getting better until they did. And I think that's kind of just how it goes with recovery, because there was nothing until there was something. And I couldn't tell you what did it. There wasn't a sign, there wasn't something that made me think, I need to stop doing this, I need to get better. There was nothing like that. That never happened for me. I just changed, gradually, with help, with lots and lots of help. That year I got 1 GCSE in year 8, so pretty impressive. I got an English language GCSE. I was still coming to terms with the fact that I had autism. It's not something that I like about myself, I'll be honest. I try to be proud of it. I try to think of it as something that gives me an edge, something that makes me different from everyone else in a good way, but it is hard to see it like that. And there are so many people who are inspirational, who are incredible, who have autism. But I can't see myself as one of them just yet. I can't see myself as anything but stupid and less than everyone else. And I'm working on it, but it's going to take time. I was discharged from the SDS in September of year 9, the 8th grade. And I went to a school, but not a normal school. I went to something called a specialist school, not a special school. That's not really a term we use. It was a school specifically for people with mild to moderate autism spectrum disorder. I'm more on the mild end of the spectrum. I'm going to go into the spectrum in a later video about autism, how it affects me, and what it actually is. So going to this school was yet another shock. I had been going to a hospital school for the past 9 months while I was at the SDS, and honestly going to this school felt like more of the same. When I'd looked around the school, it seemed like the perfect place for me, but almost everything that was kind of on the pamphlet, like listed on the website, wasn't there. It wasn't true. I thought they would be offering me astronomy GCSEs, which they said they would. They didn't. I spent 2 years at this school, while my mental health, which I had worked so hard on, worsened and worsened. I felt stupid because they made me feel stupid. I was told that I would never get more than a few GCSEs, that I should try and take BTECs instead of A-levels. I wasn't going to accept that, but I had to for a time. I came away from that school with 4 GCSEs. That is all I had for 2 years of being in a specialist environment, and I'm really glad I got out from it. It took a lot of fighting with the local authority. You might not know what that is. That is your council. So mine is Lambeth Council. The wonderful, wonderful people at Lambeth Council. I'm being a little tiny bit sarcastic, but not too sarcastic because they pay for me to go to school, so They did not want me to leave the specialist school I was at. They were paying a lot of money for me to go there, and it was a lot of effort for me to have gone there in the first place. To get to that school in the first place, I had something called an EHCP, which stands for an Education and Healthcare Plan. That's something that people with special educational needs, or SEN, have, so that a school knows what they need to provide to support them. My EHCP, even now, is incredibly outdated and not accurate to who I am. But to leave that school, I had to get it changed. I had to have it shown that I was functional, that I could be in a mainstream, a normal, in whatever way you consider normal, schooling environment. That took a lot of work. That took my mum so much time and effort. I'm so grateful. I can never thank her enough for that. She went above and beyond for me. And maybe that's something that mums do, but I'm genuinely so grateful for everything she did in that period, because now I'm where I am today. Obviously, I'm not going to give the name of my school out. That's just computer 101, right? I am at a non-selective private school. They're allowing me to take A-levels with 4 GCSEs. They allowed me to skip a year. So currently I am 16 years old. I turn 17 this school year. By all means, I should be in year 12, or I should be a junior. However, this school allowed me to go into year 13, so I'm a senior now. Being at this school has done wonders for my mental health, and I think it just goes to show that being in an environment that suits you and that supports you is invaluable, especially for someone with mental health problems or SEN. I'm taking A-levels in classics, art and history of art, and I'm enjoying myself so much. I have friends, which was something I never really thought I would have, as sad as that sounds. But I do now, and I'm so happy with where I am, even though it has taken me 7 years to get here. 7 years of really hard things. It's brought me to where I am, but at the same time it has caused me so much pain. I don't know if many of you are going to be able to relate to this. I don't know if any of you are going to be able to relate to this. I don't know if any of you are even going to watch this all the way through, because it's looking like it's going to be a really long video. But I kind of just wanted to show what it's like to be in education as someone with SEN and mental health difficulties, and how hard it has been for me to finally find somewhere where I can get the education that I deserve, that everyone deserves, because everyone deserves a good education. Everyone deserves the means to get the qualifications that they need to succeed in life. And I'm only getting that in my last few years of school. The system nearly failed me. And it's failed many other people, some of whom I know. It needs to change. And yes, things have worked out for me, but that's not the end of my story. I'm going to university in a couple of years. I'm sure there'll be updates then. It's not the end of every other child with special educational needs in England. It's not the end of their story. We need to change the way that this system works. We need to change how children with SEN are treated in the system, how they're more likely to be excluded for bad behaviour than anyone else, yet they don't have the support that they need for their diagnosed conditions. Things need to change. I'm 16, I can't change the way that the government sees us, but hopefully in time and with people's support, we can. Thank you for watching. I know this has been long and at times uninteresting. If you've made it to this point, I just want to thank you, really from the bottom of my heart, for listening to everything that I have to say on this matter, because it's a lot. There's definitely more. There's lots of things I haven't included in this video that I might go into detail with later. I'll probably make a video about my time in the specialist school. I'll probably make a video about my time in the SDS in the hospital. But for now, this is all I have to say in this specific video. Thank you for watching. I hope you've learned something. I hope you've empathised with something. I don't know what I hope. I just hope you got something out of this. I think I have, even if it's just the catharsis of saying all of this out loud and hoping someone's going to see it. So, comment below if you have SEN, about your experiences. I would love to hear about them. If I get enough, maybe I'll make a video about other people's experiences. Please feel free to share this to Facebook, to Instagram, whatever you want to do. I just really want people to know what it's like, because nobody really does. So again, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you wanna, no pressure here. I love you all. Goodbye. This video was made in association with Lavender, a social group for girls aged 11 to 18 with neurodevelopmental difficulties in the South London area. I've linked to their Facebook page below. They're a brilliant resource, and it doesn't hurt that my mother founded it.